She made you believe that your needs were an inconvenience, that your emotions were too much, that simply existing as yourself was somehow wrong. And now, as an adult, you apologize for breathing too loudly in rooms where you belong. If this feels like I'm speaking directly to your soul, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, what's the one thing you still feel guilty about wanting? I read every single comment, and your truth might be the permission someone else needs to finally stop apologizing for existing. The narcissistic mother doesn't announce herself with a villain's cape. She arrives disguised as concern, wrapped in the language of love, armed with the devastating weapon of conditional affection. She trains you from your earliest breath to believe that love is earned through compliance, that acceptance comes through self-erasure, that your worth is measured by how little space you take up in her world. She teaches you that guilt is love, that sacrifice is devotion, that disappearing is the highest form of respect you can show her. Every breath you take that isn't in service of her needs becomes evidence of your selfishness. Every tear you cry that isn't about her pain becomes proof of your ingratitude. John Bowlby understood something that your narcissistic mother never wanted you to know. The relationship with your primary caregiver becomes the blueprint for how you see yourself in every relationship that follows. When that caregiver is narcissistic, they don't just fail to meet your emotional needs. They teach you that having needs is the problem. They teach you that wanting love is demanding. They teach you that existing fully is taking too much. Listen to me carefully. You were not born broken. You were not born too much. You were not born guilty. You were born whole, with legitimate needs for love, attention, validation, and emotional safety. But the narcissistic mother cannot tolerate a child who exists as their own person. She needs you to exist as an extension of her, a reflection of her greatness, a prop in the theater of her perfection. So she trained you. Like a master manipulator, she conditioned you to believe that your natural human responses were character flaws. Every time you cried, you learned you were too sensitive. Every time you needed comfort, you learned you were needy. Every time you showed joy that wasn't about her, you learned you were selfish. Every time you had an opinion that differed from hers, you learned you were wrong. She didn't just reject your emotions, she taught you to reject them yourself. The training was systematic, calculated, relentless. When you were happy, she found ways to dim your light. When you were sad, she made it about her pain. When you succeeded, she either took credit or minimized your achievement. When you failed, she used it as evidence of your inadequacy. Nothing you did was ever enough because enough would have meant she couldn't control you anymore. The signs are written in the language of your daily life now. You over-explain everything as if your mere existence requires justification. You apologize for having preferences, for taking up space, for having feelings that inconvenience others. You say sorry for things that aren't your fault, for things that are perfectly normal, for things that you have every right to want or feel or need. You attract partners who are emotionally unavailable because unavailable love feels familiar. It feels like home. It feels like what you deserve. You become a people pleaser, not because you're kind, but because you learned that your survival depended on keeping others happy at the expense of yourself. You learned that love is something you earn through performance, not something you receive simply for being human. You might not recognize the narcissistic mother because she doesn't look like the monster in the movies. She looks loving from the outside. She looks like the mother who says, "I sacrificed everything for you," while making you responsible for her happiness. She looks like the mother who says, "I only want what's best for you," while punishing you for wanting something different. She looks like the mother who says, "You're so ungrateful." Whenever you have a need she doesn't want to meet. She looks like the mother who turns your achievements into her victories and your failures into her embarrassments. She looks like the mother who knows exactly what to say to make you feel small when you start feeling too big for her comfort. She looks like the mother who loves you when you're convenient and withdraws when you're not. The devastating truth is this: she made you feel guilty for the very things that make you human. Your need for autonomy became selfishness in her eyes. Your need for emotional validation became attention-seeking. Your need for boundaries became disrespect. Your need to be seen and heard became too much, too loud, too demanding. Your need for unconditional love became impossible to fulfill because her love was always, always conditional. She convinced you that your emotions were weapons against her peace, that your needs were burdens on her life, that your wants were evidence of your greed, that your boundaries were signs of your coldness, that your independence was proof of your betrayal. But here's what she never told you, what she couldn't tell you because it would have shattered her control. You don't need her permission to exist fully. You don't need her validation to be worthy of love. You don't need her approval to take up space in this world. You don't need her acknowledgement to know that you matter. The guilt you carry isn't yours. It was planted there, watered daily, fertilized with criticism and neglect until it grew so large it convinced you it was part of your identity. But guilt isn't your identity. It's not your nature. It's not your inheritance. It's something that was done to you, not something that is you. The work isn't about confronting her. That's a battle you'll never win, because narcissists don't fight fair. They fight to maintain their version of reality. They fight to keep you small. They fight to keep you guilty. They fight to keep you believing that their version of love is the only love you deserve. The work is about confronting the voice inside your head that sounds exactly like her. The voice that whispers you're too much when you show emotion. The voice that says you're selfish when you have boundaries. The voice that makes you shrink when you should be expanding. The voice that makes you apologize when you should be standing tall. That voice isn't you. It's her programming. It's the emotional abuse she embedded so deep you think it's your own thoughts. But thoughts that diminish you, that make you feel guilty for existing, that convince you you're too much, those aren't your thoughts. Those are her thoughts that she taught you to think. You can heal from this without her acknowledgement, without her apology, without her change. Your healing doesn't require her participation. It doesn't require her permission. It doesn't require her understanding. Your healing requires your commitment to unlearning the lies she planted in your mind about who you are and what you deserve. Stop apologizing for having needs. Your needs are not inconveniences. They're human requirements. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Your bigness doesn't threaten people who are secure in themselves. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Stop accepting crumbs and calling it love. Stop believing that your worth is determined by how little trouble you cause. You were not put on this earth to be convenient for others. You were not born to be a supporting character in someone else's story. You were not created to apologize for existing. You were not designed to carry guilt that isn't yours. You were not meant to live small so others could feel big. The guilt you feel when you say no, that's not your conscience. That's her control. The shame you feel when you want something, that's not humility, that's her conditioning. The fear you feel when you think about putting yourself first, that's not wisdom. That's her training. You can give it back. All of it. The guilt that tells you wanting love is selfish. The shame that tells you having boundaries is mean. The fear that tells you existing fully is too much. None of it belongs to you. None of it serves you. None of it protects you. It only keeps you small. Your existence is not an inconvenience, it's a gift. Your needs are not burdens, they're human. Your emotions are not too much, they're yours, and they're valid. Your wants are not selfish, they're necessary. Your boundaries are not cruel, they're healthy. Your voice is not too loud. It's been silenced for too long. The little child inside you who learned to apologize for breathing, they're still there, waiting for you to tell them it's safe to exist fully. It's safe to want what you want. It's safe to feel what you feel. It's safe to need what you need. It's safe to be exactly who you are without editing yourself for other people's comfort. That child learned to survive by becoming small, by becoming convenient, by becoming invisible when necessary. But you're not that child anymore. You're an adult with the power to choose differently. You have the power to reject the programming. You have the power to rewrite the story she told you about yourself. You are not responsible for her emotions. You are not responsible for her happiness. You are not responsible for her peace. You are not responsible for managing her reactions to your existence. You are only responsible for honoring your own truth, your own needs, your own right to exist fully and unapologetically. The narcissistic mother creates children who become adults that apologize for breathing, who feel guilty for wanting, who shrink to make others comfortable. But you can break that cycle. You can choose to exist without apology. You can choose to take up space. You can choose to believe that you deserve love that doesn't require you to disappear. If this resonated with you, if you recognize these patterns in your life, know that healing is possible. Sometimes we need more than awareness. We need tools, strategies, and support to break these deep-seated patterns that have been with us since childhood. I've created a comprehensive guide specifically for those healing from narcissistic abuse and childhood emotional wounds. It includes practical exercises to rewire those guilt patterns, scripts for setting boundaries, and step-by-step methods to reclaim your sense of self-worth. The link is in the description below, and it might be exactly what you need to take the next step in your healing journey. You deserve to exist without apology. You deserve to take up space. You deserve love that doesn't require you to shrink. Start believing it.